The world just opened up and I really realized how it impacts us in all areas of our life, even financially. Money is incredibly emotional, but it only feeds off of the emotions you have. Our purpose in life is to create beautiful heart spaces. Money is the outward expression of energy. I get called a mind whisperer because I talk a lot about reprogramming the subconscious brain, and here's the way to do it.
From finance expert to master of the mind, get ready for a story that will change how you see success. It's not every day you hear about finance and spiritual insights mixed together. But what if the secret to your financial potential lies in combining the sharp strategies of Wall Street with the deep wisdom of spiritual insight? Imagine transforming your business by blending money smarts with metaphysical wisdom. Our guest today did just that, helping heart-centered entrepreneurs boost their revenue by 25% or more. She's gone from managing 500 million in assets to touching 85 million lives worldwide. Her approach uniquely combines financial expertise with energy healing, offering a fresh perspective on success and wealth. Get ready for a masterclass in reinvention, abundance, and the power of aligning your wallet with your soul. From financial advisor to international best-selling author to being dubbed the Mind Whisperer, this is the extraordinary journey of Dawna Campbell. Welcome to the show, Dawna.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here with you today and being on Inspired by Success.
So tell me, you spent a decade as a financial advisor and managing principal. What made you say, you know what, I'm going to be a healer instead? Was there a light bulb moment? Because it's so unusual from somebody in the finance world totally flip into the spiritual. It's just rare. So when I heard about you, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the stuff that I'm passionate about, because as a business person, I love learning about finance, but I'm also into the spiritual and metaphysics and how we can improve our abundance and making it faster. So tell me where that journey started and how it all began.
Yes, it's not something common, like you said, and it's not something that you wake up as a child saying, oh, I think I'm going to go be a healer or go do energy work. It's not in their repertoire. And I started my career as a financial advisor because I really had a heart to help middle-class America get ahead in life, send their kids to college. And it was just part of how I was brought up. But about 7 years into my career, what really happened was I started having a lot of health medical issues, and doctors were not able to determine why. So after 2 years, I quit the please come back if you still have a problem. And I found a naturopathic healer who did some sort of Oriental medicine. I'm like, well, let's figure this out. And she said, well, in Chinese medicine, because you can't digest food, here's your $35 bottle of enzymes. There's something in your life that you can't digest, but don't go looking for it. It's just going to surface. And I thought that that was the most curious statement ever. And about 3 months later, what surfaced was I had learned of my husband being unfaithful of me and the infidelity in my marriage. So I left. I became a single parent of 2 kids and decided, because 1, my health, and 2, my relationship, those 2 things had me in common. So I moved to an ashram, a spiritual living community, and took a sabbatical for a year to learn about me and myself. So I started studying science and brainwave patterns and philosophy and Eastern medicine and Western medicine, and started a different relationship. And that person one day almost took my life through strangulation. And before I took my last breath, he took his hand off of me and decided that I could retaliate, which I couldn't. So I left that relationship as well, going, okay, something here isn't right. And I went back to where I started. I went to go back to my old job. After the sabbatical, I was not reinstated and I was left financially devastated. But that day that I left that second relationship, I made a promise to God, the universe, creator, source energy, whatever you would like to call it, that if my children and I were kept safe, I would dedicate my life to what I saw as a healing path. And here I am 20 years later, still doing that, still learning, still helping transforming other people's lives because of that promise. So that's how I got from one to the other. And then the world just opened up and I really realized how it impacts us in all areas of our life, even financially.
That's a fascinating story. Very interesting. And you would have had to go through a few awakenings as well to discover who you are. And it sounds very similar to another guest that I had too. She was a doctor, and from the doctor world, and she got sick one day, and then she went to an alternative naturopath
Mhm.
because she
Yes.
couldn't find out what was wrong with her. And then from there, she changed her career path, and it's just fascinating. So it's very similar. Sometimes it takes a sickness or an event to wake us up and awaken us as well. But it's very fascinating because from the finance world, it's totally different. It's totally analytical and logic to be where you are now as a healer and learning about the subconscious and the science. We'll unpack that too. But one question I'm curious to know is, does your finance background ever clash with your healing work, or do they play really well together? Because sometimes it's uncommon for people that are in the spiritual world to know about business and care about the money aspect. But you've got both, the beauty of both worlds. So does it ever clash, or does it work together nicely?
They harmonize together. The financial planning world is really about our consciousness, the side that we do. So invest here, plan here, do that, fund this. It's our action that we take out into the world. What I do now is more on the being side of things, and it's aligning more of the heart, mind, and soul with the financial decisions that we make. And it's how to be with money instead of what to do with money. Because we often think thoughts like, I'm rich and abundant, but we feel a less than, who am I, lack energy on the inside. Well, here's what I discovered is money is incredibly emotional, but it only feeds off of the emotions you have because you are an energy being. Money is the outward expression of energy. So clients all around the world, doesn't matter what country or culture, would get to the heart of the matter. They would start saying things like, I wanted to know that I was worthy or that I was valued and appreciated. And then one day the light bulb went off. That's exactly what we said in the financial planning world. Here is your net worth. Your portfolio value is. Your assets appreciated. Oh, do you have enough money to fund XYZ goal? And if you didn't feel like you were enough on the inside, you didn't have enough on the outside to fund the goal. So it was a direct symbiotic relationship. One is just an inward approach. The other is the outward approach. But when it comes into an alignment, what happens is you end up with a 25% or more increase in income, and all you did was align your energy.
Wow. And I think that comes with your beliefs as well, and your subconscious programming and what you were taught as well. If you were taught money is evil when you're growing up, or we don't have enough of that, because I've spoken to many guests about this and I'm still fascinated about it as well. So how do we align ourselves, inner self first, and feel that self-worth before we can have that alignment with the external, with money?
Okay. To be totally transparent and authentic, it takes me 2 days to teach you how to do that. But here for the podcast, it's really understanding what's underneath the belief. Because like you said, money is the root of all evil. A penny saved. We have all of these subconscious beliefs, but we go a layer deeper and we go underneath what the belief is to the energy field, which is an emotion or feeling, because that is what is driving the belief. So you can change a belief all day long from I'm unwanted to I'm wanted, but yet that is the only piece that's going to shift and change. When we go to those layers underneath, the fuel, the energy that we give it, the emotions and feelings, when that transforms, it transforms all of the beliefs and everything associated with what we're working on, or with the money, for example. And there's 4 levels that we tend to have that we hold our beliefs, feelings, and emotions on. And the first one is our direct experiences. It's everything we've experienced in this lifetime and what was taught to us. The second area is our genetics and our DNA, what was passed down from our family lineage, because that gave us our first operating blueprint. The third area is what I call social conditioning. This is our movies and our newspapers and the media world and what we watch and what we listen to. That's all programming us on a subconscious level. And then the fourth area is on a soul level. It's the dream state, or if you believe in lives before this one, the things that we carried from lifetime to lifetime. So it lasts, and everything is on all 4 of those levels. And it's just understanding, where did it come from? What did it feel like? And what would we rather have it feel like to make that transformation?
Wow, that's fascinating. I didn't realize there was that many levels too. Let's talk about mind whispering and subconscious reprogramming as well, because your approach is known as mind whispering. Can you explain this concept and how it's different from other coaching methods, for
Uh-huh.
example?
So I call it thought form energy healing. And what we're doing is we are healing the energy underneath the thought form. So it's not coaching in the fact that I'm not telling you what to do. We're not giving you, here's how to go from step 1 to step 2, step 3. And it's not a linear process. What we're doing is we are going underneath it on an energetic spiritual level to put things into alignment. So if you think of the iceberg picture, and there's that piece that's above the water and then like the 90% that's below. Well, the piece above the water, that's our 10% of our conscious reality. So we think thoughts all the time, like I'm rich and abundant. But that iceberg level, that 90% is going, imposter syndrome, lack energy, who am I? And so what happens is, because we're electromagnetic beings, that energy magnetically is stronger than the thought. And so that energy sends out, and that's what magnetically attracts back. And it's the emotion and feeling that you have moment by moment, except 90% of the time, we're unaware of it because it's subconscious. And so what I do is I go through an alignment process to align. When you think the thought, I'm rich and abundant, you really do feel rich and abundant. And so I have to discover where it's at on one of those 4 levels to go back to that part, usually in childhood, to make that energetic exchange. Because you might have been learning a pattern of stress and worry and pressure from your parents long before you could speak about how money works. And that's a pattern that you would carry into your life. So when we uncover that, we reprogram it in the brain, fastest supercomputer possible, to a higher frequency. We don't want to feel stress, worry, and pressure about money. We want it to be abundant and plentiful and free flowing, and the faucet's always on and the river flowing. And so through that energetic exchange, we can reprogram. And when that happens, the story changes, the points in our body where we felt the energy stuck changes, and everything moving forward changes in your life after that.
Wow. Okay. So there's a couple of questions there. It's fascinating. In terms of the abundance, we often think of abundance as having lots of money, but I suspect your view is different. What does true abundance look like to you?
It is really in all areas of your life. It's being plentiful, having more than and extra, so it's possible to share. So abundance is not just money, but health, it's relationships, it's love, it's all of the things that we deem good. You can have an abundance of kindness, you can have an abundance of generosity, abundance of the virtues. So it's not just money, but it's all the things tied together.
I love it. That's very powerful. And how do we shift that energy you mentioned as well? Just say we're going, like, in times of economic uncertainty, there's ups and downs and bull markets and bear markets. But how do we shift our energy, especially when we're going through tough times and challenging
Right?
times?
Well, in every moment, every frequency exists. So even though the world might be saying it's a bear market and times are tough, or we're headed for a recession, doesn't mean that it has to apply to you. There was a time where I lived in this one state, Idaho, actually, and there was a new restaurant that opened up, and it was near a college, and they were very successful. It was like a pineapple Hawaiian grill. And during that time, they were very, very profitable. They were a booming business. And about 3 years later, because this was during the global recession, they opened a second restaurant in the next town over. And the news media came out and said, "What are you thinking? We're in a recession, and now you're opening a second restaurant." And the owners of it said, "We decided not to participate." So it really comes down to the mindset. So just because it's happening around you doesn't mean it's happening to you. And you truly get to create the world that you want and desire and choose to to live in. And when you shift and change the internal vibrational frequency, you shift and change the world around you.
Wow, that's beautiful. And no, I think that's very powerful there, because some of the most profitable businesses and companies were built during the recession anyway. So if you can take advantage of it, then
Right?
you
It's
can
kind of like
definitely,
buying when the stock market is down,
yeah,
build in a
fail.
recession.
Yeah, that's true. Can you share a simple, effective technique that our listeners can try to cultivate abundance, something practical that doesn't need any special tools or rituals? I've heard guests talk about gratitude, journaling, and writing your goals down. Is there something else that you would recommend?
Yeah, it's called breathing. It's pretty simple.
Mm.
We do it naturally. So, what you're going to do actually is you're going to set a timer on your phone for it to go off in an hour and 13 minutes from the time you're in now. The point is to catch you off guard. So, it's not at the top of the hour or the half hour. So, when the timer goes off, what you're going to do is you're going to assess how you feel in the moment, because we don't check in with ourselves. We don't have an awareness of how we feel. And because we're not doing that, we don't know what's happening in the subconscious and what emotions and feelings we're really running. So when that timer goes off, you're going to ask yourself, how do I feel in this moment? And if it's like stress, worry, pressure, maybe you're angry, maybe you might be frustrated, maybe you feel a little lonely or depressed, you're going to stop. And you are going to breathe for 3 to 5 minutes. And you're going to ask yourself, what is the opposite of what I'm experiencing? So if you have stress, the opposite of that would be peace, because in every moment, every frequency exists. It's just that right now you're stuck on the stress, and we want to move to the energy of peace. So when we breathe in, we're going to breathe in oxygen, all of the good things that our body needs. And we're going to breathe out carbon dioxide, all the toxins. So we want to breathe in the good thing. We're going to breathe in peace. And we're going to breathe out stress, peace, stress, peace, stress. And we're going to do that for 3 to 5 minutes. And you can mentally think the word as you're taking the in breath and the out breath. And what's going to happen is you're going to create a physiological change running through the body, and you're going to feel completely different. And then when that timer goes off, again, you're going to return back to the activity that you're doing, and then you're going to have more focus, more clarity, and more balance. Reset the timer for it to go off in, 3 hours and 47 minutes from that moment. And then when it does again, repeat the process. But what we're doing is we're creating a pattern to mentally check in with how we feel. And once we know what we feel, we then have the power to change it if it's not in alignment with what we want to create.
Wow, it's very powerful, because that self-awareness piece, like yesterday, for example, the day before I was going really well, everything was flowing, but then yesterday, for some reason, I was just feeling overwhelmed. I don't know if it was lack of sleep, but I don't know if it was the diet, because I have been eating a lot of meat lately, and I know that I shouldn't be consuming too much meat. I don't know if it's just, for me personally, I think the hormones that are in the meat, that affects us as well. So I thought, is this stress, overwhelm based on my diet or lack of sleep? But then it took a lot of self-awareness to think about that. And one thing that I noticed is that I sometimes do breath work morning and night, and I go onto YouTube and I look up quantum breath work, and that helps me like visualize things too and alleviate stress. What are your thoughts on that, the quantum breath work? And do you think it's a powerful tool to help people manifest as well and visualize what they want? And does it help you somehow? I just do it because I'm just hoping that it works, and I feel like I'll give it a try. So I just listen to it before I wake up, and then sometimes at night before bed, but I haven't been doing it lately. But what are your thoughts on that, the quantum breath work?
When you do the quantum breath work, how do you feel afterwards?
It helps me with my day. If I'm doing it in the morning, I'm more calmer as well.
Yeah.
So it does. And then I'm more excited about what I'm going to achieve in my goals as well. So I do think there is definitely a benefit as well to that.
There is. And it's breathing. And anything breathing related, prana, it's giving us life force energy. So yes, it's designed to elevate. And a lot of us don't really sit and breathe. But the other thing that's happening while you are doing that exercise is that you're probably setting an intention for the day. And by setting the intention or having that mindfulness moment, then that's what continues to create throughout the day. So any type of practice like that works. You can change it up. I had a Buddhist monk. I was really excited. I was at this Lightworkers conference, and I knew this monk was going to be coming. He came at the very end of the conference, and I was so excited to meet him. He comes over to my booth and looks at me, and he says, I'm waiting. I waited like the 3 whole full days for this person to show up. And he says, when you wake up in the morning and make your coffee, I want you to sit down and meditate first. And when you're done meditating, then drink your coffee. I just kind of looked at him like, what? What? I waited 3 days for you to tell me to meditate before I drank my coffee? I'm like, but it would be cold. And he goes, exactly. But he goes, if I were you, I would switch to organic. And he turned around and walked away. And I thought that was the strangest thing. So I decided it was in the wisdom. I got up the next morning. I made my coffee. I sat down and meditated. And I found myself breathing and setting the intentions of what I was going to achieve that day. And then I did drink my coffee. To this day, I laugh because I still drink cold coffee. I've been doing this for a number of years. I changed my process. So I don't think it's so much what you do as the energy that you're in while doing it. So I'm very methodical. I get up in the morning. I put the hot water on the stove. I grind my beans. I put it into a French press. When the water goes off, you go through that whole process, but I'm very intentional with what I'm doing. But I'm also formatting and putting the intention in for my day with what I'm going to do, because that's where my process is. And then I sit down, I do meditate, I do drink my coffee. I do like warm coffee too. So, and I do that, but it's having that sacred time for you. I don't think it matters so much what you do, but if it's a process you like and it works for you, then do it.
How long do you meditate for each time?
Depends on the day. If I have to get ready, it might be a shorter time. If I have plenty of time in the morning, I'll sit there as long as I can.
Wow. You mentioned before about money. Money is emotional. Got me really intrigued. Can you unpack that a bit, and how are our feelings mixed with our finances?
Yes. So how you think and feel about yourself is how money responds to you in life. So if you feel like you're unworthy, your net worth may not be very high. If you feel undervalued, your value of your bank account may not be big. It might be small. So money by itself doesn't do anything, but it feeds off of the energy that you're in. Because it's an energy that's outside of you, it doesn't do anything until you put it into motion. And then you put it into motion with your feelings and emotions and how you think and feel about yourself. And I found this really interesting because in the financial planning world, I had lots of different clients, and they would be invested sometimes in the same sets of mutual funds. And some accounts grew a lot bigger, and other accounts not necessarily over different time periods. It could have been the time period. But what I found really interesting was that those that were always in alignment with what the account was for and what the goals were always had greater returns than those that weren't. So I had one set of clients at the time, they, instead of buying a car and making car payments to a dealership, they would put that car payment into a fund, let it accumulate the interest, and then they, when they were ready for a new car, take it out without really touching the principal and taking out the growth of it, and then they would go buy the new car. And so there was a fund, one account, that was only dedicated for them when they had to purchase new vehicles because of how they saw the vehicle. They didn't touch that money for anything else. It didn't fund anything else versus people just putting money away without an intention. They had an intention for the account and they were in alignment with what they were using it for. And their portfolios always grew the fastest versus the ones that didn't because they were already in alignment. So it would be fun. It would be fascinating to go back to teach and share some of this in the financial planning world, not just for the advisors, but even for the clients of really what to do. Because when you do take those action steps, everything else unfolds and it brings you greater returns than what you would have experienced had you not taken the time to do that.
Wow, very interesting concept there. So, how do we set goals and intentions? Because every person is different based on their age and if they're acceptable to risk as well, like more
Uh-huh.
risk, or if they're just less risky. But how do we set our goals? Because, like, I, for example, want to go just hit 100 million, for example. Like, is that too far fetched? Like, that's one of my dream visions to have that. And then I'm just going to work towards that. I don't know. I don't have a set time. Should I be having a set specific date on my goals? I have multiple other goals as well in terms of business. But when it comes to when you were doing financial planning, do you have any tips and advice on how someone should set their goals and align with that as well?
You should only set goals on things that you can control yourself. So setting a goal for a mutual fund to perform a particular amount is beyond your control. There's the
Mm-hmm.
stock market, there's other businesses, there's other investors, there's a portfolio manager, there's all kinds of factors that come into it. So I think the greatest advice that I ever received around goal setting was when I went to go write my first book. And I took a class on self-publishing. And the instructor said, only set goals around your book that you can achieve. That's dependent on you. So to say, I'm going to sell 300 books a month, well, unless you forced people to buy your book, unless you bought 300 copies yourself, you can't make somebody outside of you to do something. So that's not a great goal to have because you don't have the controlling factor. You might want to say, I'm going to do 5 book signings a month. I'm going to do 7 podcasts a month sharing my book because you can control that. And those are achievable. And then you can look at and see how many people I want to network. And I know that I need for me to make an extra $1 million on a $5,000 product. I have to talk to so many people a month, which is about 170 people over a quarter. So it's 17 people a month. I have to serve 17 people a month to do that. And so you have to know the numbers. You have to know what the goal is that is within your control. Now, intention is a little bit different. For me, intention is what do I want to achieve emotionally from this? How do I want to feel? If I made that extra $1 million in this year, how would I truly feel? And if I set the intention of, okay, I know that I have to talk to 5 people a day to get 17 people a month, that sort of thing, then I can put the intention in there. I'm going to talk to 7 people, still within my control, because it's up to me if I talk to those 7 people or not. And of course, we're overachievers. We're going to put in a bigger number because the intention is there. But if I only spoke to 5, probably not going to be too sad about that. So it's how you want the outcome to be. And then I go through my own little visualization exercise when I do my intention setting in the morning and my meditation of this is how I want my outcome to look. Because I'm creating it in the mind first internally, and I've put that vibration out in the world. And then the people that are in alignment with it show up, and you either collaborate or facilitate or all the other things.
Well, and I think that's how I connected with you too, because I was fascinated by what you do, and it's interesting. Tell me about your book, The Abundant Soul, and what are the key takeaways you want people to learn from it? Because you mentioned you had another book before, Financially Fit book, but this one, tell us a little bit about The Abundant Soul and
Yes. So what I did was I took the principles from the first book, Financially Fit, and I wrote them in a story format in The Abundant Soul. So in the story, it's taking all of the different principles unfolding in a person's everyday life. The story follows the main character. Her name's Crystal. She's a woman in her 40s going up the corporate ladder and yet has some turning of events very early on that really makes her question the reality that she's in and even her own financial abundance situation. So some of the key takeaways that are going to happen that you'll see that she learns throughout the book. One is one of the principles we've been talking about, how money is emotional. And she learns that as she shifts and changes her own feelings, it changes the actions. And by that, she creates a different type of money supply for her. She also learns about the 4 sides of a quarter, which is in the book, and then how all of those pieces come into play because we're really truly programmable. And so it just kind of takes you through a year in her life. There's a cliffhanger at the end, so it'll move into the second book, which will come out later this year, which will focus on a different topic, which will be relationships from finances, but still carrying through. So.
Oh, wow. I'm definitely interested in that too. So, do you have any books that have made a huge impact in your life, mentors that have shifted the way you think, have helped you radically improve?
Yes, but my mentors that I've had are of not of the same nature than what most people would think is a mentor. There was a time in my life where I met this lady who was a medicine woman. When I first met her, I didn't know she was a medicine woman because she really looked like Mrs. Doubtfire. It was kind of funny. And I would think that, you would be Indian and long hair and braids, and it wasn't like that. But when I got to know her, she was telling me what she did for the tribes and the different things. So she truly was a medicine woman. Her name is actually Leandra. So it was just an everyday person you would see walking down the street that I synchronistically aligned up with. But she was a great mentor and a great teacher for me. I've studied with a couple of Buddhist monks. I don't have their names, but I just call them the Buddhist monks. I'm a yoga healer and people like that have really truly mentored. But I think some of my favorite books, the very first one that comes to mind is Old Turtle and the Broken Truth. And it's a picture book that's a story by Douglas Wood meant for children. And at the end, it's an amazing story because there was a truth that came to Earth. It got broken. The little girl was tired of all the fighting and the war. So she goes and ventures to the center of the Earth to Old Turtle to find out what the other half of the truth is. And at the end of the book, it's revealed. And it's exactly my philosophy. The first half of the truth was, you are loved. And the second half is, and so are they.
What's the book called again?
Old Turtle and the Broken Truth.
And the Broken Truth. Okay, I'm going to write that down because I'm curious to know and read it. I love reading books as well. So you work with many heart-centered entrepreneurs. Can you explain what it means to be a heart-centered entrepreneur and share some of the unique challenges that they face oftentimes more than others?
Absolutely. Heart-centeredness to me is somebody who wants to do good out in the world, to be of service, to have kindness, to really be in that heart space, not just looking out for themselves, that would be the ego, but sharing in the gifts, talents, and abilities to spread the love, the joy, their gifts, so everybody gets to benefit from it. Some of the challenges heart-centered entrepreneurs have is being taken advantage of, simply put, because they are kind. We do say yes. We would do anything in the world for the next person. And there are people that will take advantage of that. So that's one of the downfalls of the heart-centeredness. We think kind means being nice and polite, but also you can be kind and still have boundaries.
Yeah, I love that, the explanation of the heart-centered entrepreneur, because me as an entrepreneur myself, I find joy in like helping my team and building something, but then also the goal is to help build for them and share the insights. And this is why I love doing the podcast so much, because I get to learn from the best and thought leaders and entrepreneurs and then just share it with the world. So hopefully what I'm passionate about, I find the same audience in the same circle that are passionate about it as well. And then, yeah, we can just share this knowledge together. So I don't know if that's heart-centered or not, but by the sound of it, I think I can definitely align with being a heart-centered entrepreneur as well. Let's talk about healing and personal development. I'm fascinated by different healing techniques. How do you decide which ones to use with each client that you have?
I use the same process, regardless of the client and regardless of the issue, because it works. And it's simple for me after 20 years, but it's really going back to the vibrational level to make that energetic exchange. Do I use Reiki for this person and crystal healing for this person and EFT over here for this person? And there's so many of them out there. No. Why? Because we are going back to the basics, to the vibration, the frequency, and the energy to make those internal changes on a cellular level, on a mental level, on an emotional level, on a financial level, on a spiritual level. And it all comes down to those three things. So even studying physics, it's the same process because everything can be denoted down to vibration and frequency.
Wow, I'm fascinated about that. It sounds similar to also rewiring your brain and becoming the person that you want to become too. Dr. Joe
Yes.
Dispenza talks about it.
Yes, exactly. It would follow that. And that's why I get called a mind whisperer, is because I talk a lot about reprogramming the subconscious brain. And here's the way to do it. And when I was sharing this initially out in the media world, they're like, we don't know what you do, but we'll just call you a mind whisperer because it's like a horse whisperer or like a dog whisperer, because that's what you're doing. You are reprogramming the brain. The difference is I just learned a technique to be able to do that for another person with them instead of you just sitting there trying to do it yourself.
Wow. And you've applied these techniques for yourself, and have you found it's been working really well for yourself as well?
Well, you're always your own first client. So that
Mm.
fun story and that what you'd call a dark night of the soul for those 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I had to really work on myself for all of those things. So yes.
Powerful. Let's talk about success mindset. So, what's the biggest myth about success that you think you want to clarify?
What is a success for you might be a failure for somebody else. And what might be a failure for somebody else could be a success for you. So I think one of the biggest myths is success is based on perspective.
Yes, that's
And
true.
what might be great for one person might not work for somebody else because it's all based on your own perception. I used to say there's no success or failure, only experience. And if you like the experience, keep doing it. If you didn't like the experience, stop. But even with the experiences, regardless if they were a positive experience or a negative experience, there was always a silver lining gift and something good that came from it. You just had to be open to see what that is. So earlier when I shared the story of the day that I was suffocated, almost died, it was years later that I was asked a question and it just came out of my mouth. That person who did that actually died. They had brain cancer and they crossed over probably 6 or 7 years ago. But what was fascinating about that is I had the realization that they were a product of their own emotions and their own beliefs, and that's what happened to them. And knowing what I know about cancer, I went back in the time, how many years to when I saw the obituary, when the cancer was first there, and how many years back. And it started at the time that we were breaking up when he was starting to become mentally unstable and tried to take my life. So then I had compassion, and then I had understanding, and then I had empathy. But there was this one question, and I realized because that person crossed over, I was still here living. Now, I could still live as what you would call a victim in that, or I could live my life how I chose because I'm still here. And I could live my life abundantly. I can live my life prosperously. And that's what I chose. And I get to create the life that I want to live. So there was a silver lining gift there. Back when that happened, even the few years after, I couldn't see it because I couldn't, because things come to us in layers. So there's always a silver lining gift. So whether it's a success for you or a failure for you, whether it was a positive thing or a negative thing, it doesn't matter. There was a gift in there if you open your eyes to see it.
Wow, that is very, very fascinating. It's just amazing story there, because during the time that you would have witnessed and gone through that abuse, like, it would have been tough at the time too, because we all go through rough moments in life as well. And it's hard to see the lesson in these moments while we're going through it as well. But do you have any advice for anyone that is going through a rough time in their life and your perspective changed, but it took you years to change? Do you know what I mean? Now
Yes.
looking back, if you had to go through the times now, what would you tell your younger self now that you've got all this wisdom, and for those that are going through a rough time as well?
Mhm. During those times, those 4 or 5 years, when it was really hard for me, I actually wrote my own mantra. And the mantra was trust and you will see, believe and you will know, have faith, all is well. Follow your heart and spirit will lead you. And I still use it today. I still share it today. I even put it at the beginning page of the Abundant Soul book because faith, trust, and belief are the three keys to anything. And if you truly follow what's in your heart space, you will always make decisions that are aligned with what you want. So if you go into the fear, the doubt, the disbelief, what if, that's not the right energy. If you're running around and asking everybody their opinion and what their thought is and how to make a decision, you're not making the decision for yourself. Do the one that's in alignment with you. And it always comes down to faith, trust, and belief. So trust and you will see, believe and you will know, have faith, all is well. Follow your heart and spirit will lead you.
Well, when you mentioned about asking questions, and I do that sometimes too, when I'm uncertain, I ask, like I have doubt, especially if it's in business. How does somebody overcome these self-limiting beliefs if you're not sure? I know that it's fear of failure sometimes. And I know that failure teaches us many lessons as well, but sometimes that subconscious limiting belief is still there. Someone on my team too, I know that he's got a limiting belief and I really want to raise him up and make him, because I see so much potential with him and I see like he asks great questions, he's got great work ethics, and I can see that there's some limiting beliefs as well. We all have it, but how do we remove that limiting belief and become a better version of ourselves?
Yes. So one of the things, of course, is going through the reprogramming process. And we would figure out where the doubt got started and going through that type of process as well. What's really interesting about doubt is that we say that we're uncertain. But here's kind of how it works. A lot of people will come and say, I know I need more confidence. I need to have confidence over here. I want confidence. Well, you're pretty confident that you're unconfident. So the confidence is already inside of you. Faith is the antidote to doubt. Belief is the antidote to disbelief. And trust is the antidote to fear. So if you find yourself in doubt, ask yourself, where do I need to have the faith? And it only takes a tiny bit of faith to really start tipping the scales over to the other side with that. And one of the things that you can do if doubt arises, that means there's some uncertainty. So do you need more information? Or do you need to maybe sit in a meditation and look at your choices of doing it, not doing it, something in between, and imagining yourself in those three different scenarios and choosing the one that's the best? But if there's doubt, it means the uncertainty is there, which then means there's not enough information to really move forward when we want to move forward. So then we have to invoke patience. But if you really want to move forward and we're just doubting because that's our belief or the self-limitation that we're just doubting our own gifts, talents, and abilities, then that's when you have to invoke the faith. Take that step forward and put yourself in that alignment process and just do it.
Wow. I just wanted to ask another piece of advice too. Let's say someone's got just one shot at improving their financial situation. What's the one thing you'd tell them to focus on? Especially if they don't, like, they're really wanting to, they're in lack and they're wanting that abundance in the financial world. What's something that they should be focusing on?
I would look at personally, see what happened and why there was lack energy. And then ask yourself what is needed for you to be in the abundant energy and what is needed to bridge that gap between the two. Because you can focus on the word abundance or affirmations all day long. But even with affirmations, it's a conscious way of reprogramming. You have to have and say it 300 to 400 times a day for about 3 to 4 months for that reprogramming to happen on a subconscious level. So it's really, this is what lack feels like. This is what abundance feels like. And what is that bridge for me to get from A to B? And then that's where you focus.
Okay, that's powerful. Finally, if there's one key message you'd like to leave our audience, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. Besides the trust in you will see, believe in you will know. I think we are here, really, our purpose in life is to create beautiful heart spaces. And it's that energy of having a beautiful heart to the heart-centeredness that we get to share with the world. And when you focus there, you can level up in your vibration. And as you level up in that vibration, more of the good things come to you. And then you really start creating intentionally on purpose.
Do you know what? Like sometimes I feel like energy, like a fireball energy within me when I have an idea or I'm passionate about a
Yeah.
project or something that I want to start, a goal. And I know that not many people have that energy as well. Like, how do we spark that energy to make us want to do something? And you can feel that fire, and it's just like some hungry, a teenager, an internet's got that hungry spark within them. Then they know that they built for something for this world, and they can do so much for the world. How do you spark that if you don't have it? But also, how can we leverage that inner fire
Yeah.
that we want greatness for the world?
That's a great question. I think our purpose to who we are finds us instead of us finding our purpose. And I think when you discover what that is for you, that fire is just internally lit and nothing's going to stop you from achieving it because you're going to do it because you're driven with it. What are you trying to do if it's not what you're truly passionate about doing? Or you have an idea, but it's like, it may not be the right path for you. And you might not want to move forward with it or fulfill it because you know on that soul level internally for you. And so for me, it's really about, I always say the phrase, creating the world a better place. But that means different things to different people. So for me, it's uplifting that vibration. Now, how I choose to do that might be different on a day to day basis. Sometimes I'm sharing, like here on a podcast. Sometimes it's doing the actual healing world work and seeing your clients benefit living the life they never thought that they could live. Sometimes it's just smiling at the grocery store clerk so they had a better day. That's still healing. That's still accomplishing lifting the world up. So I think we get caught up in the how to's versus the underlying energy and purpose.
Wow. Guys, if you found this conversation as powerful as I did, please do me a favor, share it with somebody, hit the like if you're watching, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on the podcast, please do me a favor and hit that follow button. Finally, Dawna, where can people find you if they want to connect? I highly recommend, I'm going to do the same, but the Abundant Soul book, I'm going to get myself a copy. So I hope you guys do the same, but where can people find you and follow you?
Perfect. The easiest way is just go to bettercalldawna.com. And Dawna is Dawna. So bettercalldawna.com. What you're going to find there is all of the social media links. You'll see some testimonies. There's a way to book on my calendar right there as well for 15-20 minutes. And you can ask any questions that you have, or if you want to know what your internal block is, just schedule.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Dawna. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.